The door to the investor conference room swung open, and I walked in expecting champagne. Instead, I walked into an execution. Colin stood at the head of the table, his hand gestures animated, his voice carrying that practiced tone of regret he used when firing people. Aubrey's communication style destroyed months of careful work. She was warned repeatedly about her approach, but she refused to listen. 7 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Not curious, not sympathetic, disgusted. My stomach dropped through the floor. The partnership deal with Horizon Technologies had fallen apart 3 days ago, and I'd been working 16-hour days trying to salvage it. I thought this meeting was about damage control, about rebuilding. I had no idea it was about sacrifice. Colin's eyes met mine for half a second before sliding away. His jaw was set, his shoulders squared. He wasn't improvised or panicking. This was rehearsed, calculated. He'd planned this moment, these words, this room full of witnesses who would walk away believing I was incompetent. The realization hit me like ice water. He really intended to destroy me to save himself. For weeks earlier, everything had been different. I sat in my office reviewing the final negotiation call with Horizon Technologies, our laptop open to the shared document where their legal team had outlined remaining concerns. This was it. The deal that would secure $15 million in funding and validate 2 years of brutal work. My phone buzzed. Colin burst through my door without knocking, his Rolex catching the afternoon light. Still on with Horizon. Put me on speaker. I hesitated. The call was nearly finished, just minor clarifications about payment schedules. Colin, we're wrapping up the technical specs. I can brief you after. Speaker. Now. His tone left no room for argument. I unmuted. Kyle Arcio just joined. Colin, this is Kyle Patterson from Horizon's acquisition team. What happened next made my chest tighten. Colin interrupted Kyle mid-sentence, made a joke about lawyers that landed wrong, then casually mentioned our quarterly projections in a way that directly contradicted the financial disclosure documents we'd sent last week. Kyle's voice cooled instantly. I'll need to verify those numbers with my team. After the call ended, Colin grinned. See, that's how you close deals. Confidence. He pointed at my laptop. Delete that recording. We don't need permanent records of every boring negotiation. I smiled weakly and nodded. But I didn't delete it. The email from Horizon arrived at 6:47 the next morning, delivered directly to my inbox instead of going through Colin. Aubrey, we need clarification on the revenue projections discussed yesterday. The numbers your CEO mentioned don't align with your Q2 report. Please advise. My hands went cold. I forwarded it to Colin with a simple question. How should I respond? 20 minutes later, I was summoned to his office. Colin sat behind his glass desk, fingers steepled, expression carefully neutral. This is exactly the problem, Aubrey. You overcomplicate everything. Kyle's team is nervous because you've been feeding them too much technical detail. They're drowning in your documentation. Colin, they're asking about the numbers you mentioned yesterday. I didn't. Are you saying I made a mistake? His voice dropped to that dangerous quiet tone. I'm saying we should clarify which projections we're using. The ones in our official filing or... The official filing is fine. You're overthinking this. Just reassure them. He turned back to his computer screen, dismissing me. And Aubrey, stop trying to manage situations you don't fully understand. That's my job. I left his office with my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. That evening, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and played the recording from yesterday's call. I listened 3 times before I heard it. The timestamp was 14:37 into the call. Kyle had asked about our projected revenue growth for the next fiscal year. I'd started to reference the conservative estimates in our filed documents when Colin cut in. We're looking at 42% growth minimum. Our client acquisition rate is accelerating faster than projected. I heard my own sharp intake of breath on the recording. Our filed projections showed 28% growth. 42% wasn't just optimistic, it was fiction. Kyle's response had been polite but pointed. That's significantly higher than the documentation we received. Colin had laughed it off. We like to under-promise in writing. But between us, the real numbers are much stronger. There it was. The exact moment he'd violated our partnership terms. Material misrepresentation of financial data. The kind of statement that could void the entire deal and potentially trigger an SEC investigation if Horizon decided we'd deliberately deceived them. It wasn't my communication style that destroyed the partnership. It was Colin's lie. My phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Mandatory HR meeting, tomorrow 9 a.m. No agenda. No explanation. My pulse started hammering. The HR office smelled like vanilla air freshener and corporate anxiety. Vanessa from Human Resources sat across from me. Her expression carefully blank. Beside her was Troy, the compliance officer I'd seen maybe twice in 3 years. Aubrey, we've received some concerns about your communication approach with external partners. Vanessa slid a thin folder across the table. Specifically, your tendency to overwhelm clients with excessive detail and documentation. I opened the folder. It contained 3 printed emails, all from me to the Horizon team, all perfectly professional, all clearly marked with dates from before Colin joined that final call. These seem thorough and appropriate, I said slowly. What specifically is the concern? Vanessa and Troy exchanged glances. We've been informed that your communication style may have contributed to partnership complications. Informed by whom? That's confidential. Can I see the actual complaints? Troy shifted in his seat. The feedback was verbal. We're documenting it now for your personnel file. This wasn't HR protecting the company. This was HR building a paper trail. They were creating documentation that would justify whatever decision had already been made about my future here. I'd like to submit my own documentation, I said calmly. Complete communication records with Horizon, including all calls and meetings. Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. That won't be necessary. We just wanted to make you aware of the feedback. I walked back to my desk on shaking legs. A yellow sticky note was pressed against my keyboard. He's setting you up. I found Tessa in the data analytics department. Hidden behind 2 monitors displaying spreadsheets I couldn't begin to understand. She was 34, quiet, and had worked at the company since before Colin arrived. Did you leave that note? I asked quietly. She didn't look up from her screen. Conference room C is empty. 3 minutes. The small conference room smelled like stale coffee. Tessa closed the door and blinds before speaking. Colin did this to Pierce 18 months ago. Senior account manager, 15 years with the company. There was a client dispute, and Colin blamed Pierce for miscommunication. Built a whole HR case around it. What happened to Pierce? Forced resignation. No severance. Colin convinced everyone Pierce was the problem. Tessa pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. But I kept records. I always keep records. The image showed an email chain where Colin had given a client incorrect pricing information, then later forwarded only Pierce's follow-up emails to leadership, making it look like Pierce had created the confusion. My mouth went dry. He's done this before. 3 times that I know of. Whenever he makes a mistake, he finds someone to blame. Usually someone competent enough that their firing looks justified. Tessa met my eyes. You're smart, Aubrey. You keep records too, right? Some. Get all of them. Audit trails, emails, meeting notes. Everything. She glanced at the door. And check the internal audit files. Colin doesn't know analysts have read access to executive document logs. What am I looking for? Patterns. He's careful but not perfect. That night I stayed late at the office. The building was nearly empty, just the hum of HVAC systems and distant janitorial carts. I pulled up the internal audit system using my standard access credentials. Tessa was right. Analysts and senior managers had read-only access to document logs, a transparency measure the board had implemented years ago that apparently everyone had forgotten about. I searched for Colin's name and filtered by external communications over the past 18 months. The first thing I noticed was the gaps. Whole weeks where his email activity with investors and partners was mysteriously absent from the logs. Then I found the forwarding patterns. Colin had a habit of forwarding selective email chains to the board and investors, always carefully curated to show problems originating from his team while omitting his own involvement. Email number 4 in a chain might reference the pricing structure Colin discussed, but he'd forward emails 5 through 8, which only showed staff scrambling to fix something without context about who created the problem. I found 6 examples in the Horizon deal alone. Screenshots saved. Time-stamped. Irrefutable. My phone lit up with a calendar invite. Performance intervention meeting, Colin Bryce, tomorrow 2 p.m. The subject line felt like a threat. Colin's office was uncomfortably warm. He sat behind his desk with a printed document, a performance improvement plan with my name at the top. I don't want to do this, Aubrey. But given the recent challenges with client communications, we need to formalize expectations. He slid the document forward. This outlines clear metrics and behavioral standards. If you meet them over the next 90 days, we'll revisit your standing. I scanned the document. It was designed to be impossible. Reduce email length by 60%. Limit client calls to 30 minutes maximum. Obtain supervisor approval before any external communication. Every requirement was subjective and gave him complete control. If I signed this, he could terminate me at any point and claim I'd violated the improvement plan. I need time to review this. His jaw tightened. This is non-negotiable. Then I need to consult with an employment attorney before signing. Colin's expression hardened into something cold. That's your choice. But refusing to sign will be noted in your file as unwillingness to accept feedback and improve performance. That's grounds for immediate termination. So sign or get fired. I'd phrase it as sign and keep your job. He leaned back. Aubrey, I brought you in because I saw potential. Don't throw away your career over pride. I stood up. I'll review it tonight. You have until tomorrow morning. I walked out and my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message from a recruiter I'd spoken to 6 months ago. Are you still open to new opportunities? I responded immediately, very much so. The interview with Dominic Partners happened in a coffee shop 3 blocks from my office. Their VP of Strategic Development, Victoria Huang, had reviewed my portfolio before we met. Your work on the Meridian acquisition was exceptional, she said, stirring her latte. The documentation standards alone were impressive. Most people at your level don't think that strategically. I'd been careful not to mention Colin or the current situation. I focused on projects, outcomes, my approach to client relationships. Victoria asked smart questions, and I felt the tension in my shoulders slowly releasing. We're expanding our enterprise partnerships division. We need someone who can manage complex negotiations without drama. She met my eyes. Would you be interested in discussing specifics? Absolutely. We shook hands, and she promised to follow up within a week. I walked back to the office feeling lighter than I had in days. Whatever happened with Colin, I had options. I wasn't trapped. My work phone buzzed the moment I sat down. An email from Kyle at Horizon, CC'd to Colin and 3 investors. Colin, I need immediate clarification on the revenue projections you mentioned during our last call. Our financial team has found significant discrepancies between your verbal statements and your filed Q2 reports. Please explain by end of business today. I watched my screen, waiting for Colin's response. It came 40 minutes later, not as a reply, but as a message directly to me. Fix this. Colin materialized at my desk at 4:47 p.m. His face flushed, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. What did you say to Kyle? Nothing since that last call. This is about the numbers you don't. He cut me off, leaning close enough that I could smell his coffee breath. Don't try to put this on me. You're the one who sent them all that excessive documentation. You confused them. Colin, they're asking about the 42% projection. That's not in any of our filed reports. Then make it work. Clarify the numbers. Write a memo explaining that I was discussing aspirational targets, not guaranteed projections. His hand hit my desk, making my coffee cup rattle. This is your responsibility. You're the point of contact. Fix it or you're done here. He stormed off before I could respond. I didn't record the conversation. I didn't need to. 6 co-workers had watched the entire exchange, their faces carefully blank. That evening my phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Aubrey Foster. This is Miles Warren from Castellan Investment Group. I'm one of the primary investors in your company. Would you have time to meet tomorrow? Does coffee? Off the record. My heart started hammering. Of course. There's a cafe called Lanterns on 5th. Tomorrow morning 8 a.m. I'll be there. Miles Warren was 62, silver-haired, and had the kind of calm confidence that came from 30 years of calling out corporate nonsense. He ordered black coffee and got straight to the point. I've been reviewing the Horizon situation. Colin's version of events doesn't quite add up. He pulled out a small notebook. Walk me through what happened. From your perspective. Kept my tone neutral, factual. I didn't trash Colin. I simply explained the timeline. The final negotiation call, Colin's late arrival. His statement about revenue projections that contradicted our filed documents, Kyle's immediate concern, the subsequent emails asking for clarification. Miles listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back. Colin told us you overwhelmed Horizon with technical jargon and created confusion about our financial position. That's not accurate. I'm starting to see that. He studied me carefully. Do you have any documentation? Anything that shows what actually happened on that call? This was the moment. I could protect myself, or I could protect Colin and hope for mercy that would never come. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo app, and forwarded the relevant section to his email. This is the negotiation call. Time-stamped. Kyle's question starts at 14 minutes 30 seconds. Colin's response follows immediately after. Miles listened to the 60-second clip on his phone. His expression didn't change, but something cold settled into his eyes. This is the actual call. Complete and unedited. Colin told me to delete it. I didn't. He was quiet for a long moment. You should know this goes deeper than you think. If Colin misrepresented our financial position to a potential partner, he didn't just lie to them. He misled us too. Miles called me that evening. I've shared the recording with 2 other board members. We're initiating a formal review. His voice was grave. Aubrey, this is serious. If Colin made material misrepresentations during active partnership negotiations, this isn't just an HR issue. This is potential securities fraud. My hands went cold. I didn't want to cause. You didn't cause anything. You documented the truth. That's the difference. He paused. Can you send me complete communication records with Horizon? Everything from initial contact through the breakdown. Yes. Do it tonight. And Aubrey, be careful. Colin is going to figure out something's wrong. I spent 3 hours that night compiling everything. Emails, meeting notes, calendar invites, the complete call recording, my detailed summaries of each conversation. I organized it chronologically, highlighted key moments, cross-referenced Colin's statements against our official filings. When I finally sent the file to Miles, it was 11:34 p.m. His response came 2 minutes later. This is exactly what we needed. Thank you. Barely slept. Every sound in my apartment felt like footsteps. Every notification made me jump. At 6:47 a.m., my phone lit up with a message from Colin. We need to talk. Tonight. My office. 7 p.m. This isn't optional. The next 2 days felt like watching a building develop cracks before the collapse. Colin was visible through his office windows, pacing during phone calls that seemed to go badly. Vanessa from HR looked stressed. Troy from compliance was in and out of executive meetings. Something was happening behind closed doors. Tessa sent me a cryptic message. They're reviewing executive communications. Board level. On the third day, I was CC'd on an email I shouldn't have seen. Someone had accidentally included the full distribution list instead of BCC. It was from Miles to the other board members. Financial discrepancies confirmed. Colin's statements to Horizon contradicted filed reports by 14 percentage points. Reviewing all external communications for additional instances. Meeting scheduled Friday. Colin must have been CC'd too. At 3:42 p.m. he sent me a message. My office. Colin looked different. The aggressive confidence had cracked, revealing something desperate underneath. Aubrey, sit. Please. His tone was almost gentle. I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot lately. This Horizon situation has everyone stressed. I sat but said nothing. Look, I know I came down hard on you. That wasn't fair. You're a valuable member of this team. He leaned forward, his hands open in a gesture of honesty. The truth is, the board is panicking about Horizon. They need someone to blame. And right now, they're looking at both of us. What are you saying? I'm saying we need to present a united front. If we both say the communication breakdown was a mutual misunderstanding, this goes away. The board moves on. Horizon gets forgotten. He paused. I'm even willing to approve a raise for you. 10%. Effective immediately. Felt sick. You want me to take partial blame. I want us to protect each other. That's what teams do. His voice hardened slightly. But if you fight this, if you make me the villain, then I have to protect myself. And that means your performance improvement plan becomes grounds for termination. So take blame or get fired. Aubrey, I'm trying to help you. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He stood, signaling the conversation was ending. Think about it tonight. But remember, if you don't protect me, no one will protect you. The email from Victoria Huang arrived at 9:22 the next morning. Aubrey, we'd like to formally offer you the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships position. Base salary of $140,000. Full benefits, signing bonus of $15,000. I've attached the offer letter. Take your time reviewing it, but we're hoping you can start within 3 weeks. I read the offer letter 3 times. The salary was 40% more than my current pay. The title was 2 levels above where I was now. The company culture description alone made me want to cry with relief. I signed it electronically and sent it back within 20 minutes. Victoria's response was immediate. Welcome to the team. Excited to work with you. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt exhausted. Getting out didn't mean Colin faced consequences. He'd just find another person to blame, another career to destroy. My work email pinged. Another message from HR. Urgent compliance review required. Tomorrow 10 a.m. Bring all external communication records. The subject line felt like a noose tightening. Troy from compliance sat across from me with a laptop and printed email logs. Vanessa was conspicuously absent. We've received reports that you may have mishandled confidential partnership documents. Specifically, sharing proprietary financial information with Horizon without proper authorization. My stomach dropped. That's not accurate. All communication with Horizon was approved and documented. Troy turned his laptop toward me. Can you explain these forwarded emails? I leaned forward. The emails were from Colin to Horizon's legal team. Attachments that included our internal financial models, board presentations, and investor updates. Documents that should never have been sent outside the company without legal review. I didn't send these. They came from your department's shared folder, which multiple people have access to, including Colin. I pulled out my phone and opened my own email records. Here are my complete communications with Horizon. None of these attachments appear in my outbox. Troy studied his screen, then mine. Something shifted in his expression. I need to verify something. Can you wait here? He left for 7 minutes. When he returned, his face was carefully neutral. The logs show these were forwarded from the CEO's account, not yours. He closed his laptop. For your records, I'm documenting that you were not responsible for these communications. Can I get copies of that documentation? He hesitated, then printed 3 pages and handed them over. This stays between us. The board meeting was scheduled with 48 hours notice. Colin tried to rally the executive team, calling emergency strategy sessions, sending carefully worded emails about maintaining unified messaging during times of investor concern. But the cracks were visible. The CFO, who usually backed Colin on everything, was suddenly unavailable for meetings. The general counsel was asking pointed questions about documentation standards. People were quietly distancing themselves. Tessa forwarded me another screenshot, an internal message from one of the board members to the others. Colin's story isn't holding up. Multiple inconsistencies between his account and the documentation. At 4:17 p.m., Colin sent a company-wide email about malicious rumors and internal sabotage. He didn't name me directly, but the implications were clear. Some team members have been spreading false narratives about the Horizon situation. This behavior is unacceptable and will be addressed through appropriate channels. We must remain united as we navigate this challenging period. My phone started buzzing. Coworkers asking if I was okay. Tessa sending a simple message. He's scared. At 6:44 p.m., Colin sent me a direct email. Not a professional message. A desperate one. Aubrey, I know you're angry. Understand. But please think about what you're doing. You're destroying this company. You're destroying people's jobs. People with families. This isn't just about me. I made mistakes, yes, but airing them publicly helps no one. Please. We can still fix this together. I read it twice, then closed the email without responding. I spent that night organizing everything into a single, comprehensive document. The timeline started with my initial contact with Horizon 4 months ago and ended with yesterday's compliance meeting. Every claim was supported by documentation. The complete call recording. Email chains showing Colin's selective forwarding. The altered reports I'd found in audit logs. HR meeting notes. The performance improvement plan designed to fire me. Compliance logs showing Colin, not me, had forwarded confidential files. I included nothing emotional. No accusations. Just facts, timestamps, evidence. The document was 42 pages long. At 11:27 p.m., my phone lit up with a calendar invite from the board secretary. Executive review. Your presence required. Tomorrow 9 a.m. The meeting location was listed as the main boardroom. The attendee list included all 7 board members, the general counsel, and Colin. This was it. At 8:34 p.m. that night, I got a message from IT security. Your file access has been restricted pending administrative review. My hands started shaking. I couldn't access shared drives, client folders, or any of the documentation I'd been compiling. Then I received another message, this one from Troy in compliance. Access restriction was requested by CEO but denied by board order. Your permissions remain unchanged. This is being documented. Colin had tried to cut me off from evidence the night before the board meeting. And the board had blocked him. At 10:17 p.m. my office phone rang. I was still at my desk, too wired to go home. Answered. Aubrey. It's Vanessa from HR. I'm calling from my personal phone. Her voice was hushed. I need you to know, I was told to build that case against you. Colin came to me 6 weeks ago and said you were becoming a liability. Sorry. I should have pushed back. Why are you telling me this now? Because I have a daughter. And I realized I'd be devastated if someone did this to her. He paused. Good luck tomorrow. Outside my office window, I saw Colin's car still in the parking lot. His office lights blazing. Through the glass I could see him pacing, phone pressed to his ear. His free hand gesturing frantically. I heard him shout something I couldn't make out. Then silence. The boardroom felt like a courtroom. 7 board members sat along one side of the massive oak table. The general counsel, Pierce Hammond, sat at the head. Colin was already there, sweating through his dress shirt despite the aggressive air conditioning. I walked in at exactly 9 a.m. carrying nothing but my laptop and a thin folder. "Please sit, Ms. Foster." Pierce gestured to a chair directly across from Colin. Colin immediately launched into speech. "I want to state clearly that Aubrey is a talented team member. Any issues we've had are normal workplace friction. I think this whole situation has been blown out of proportion. Mr. Bryce, you'll have an opportunity to speak. Right now, we'd like to hear from Ms. Foster." Pierce turned to me. "Aubrey, we've received concerning information about the Horizon partnership failure. Can you walk us through what happened from your perspective?" I opened my laptop. My voice was steady. 4 weeks ago, I was concluding final negotiations with Horizon Technologies. The partnership was nearly finalized. On the last call, Colin joined late and made statements about our revenue projections that contradicted our filed financial reports. Colin leaned forward. "That's a mischaracterization. You'll get your turn." Miles's voice cut through the room like ice. Continued. Specifically, Colin stated we were projecting 42% revenue growth. Our official filings showed 28%. This discrepancy caused Horizon to question our credibility and ultimately withdraw from the partnership. Pierce made a note. "Do you have documentation supporting this account?" "Yes." I pulled up the audio file on my laptop and connected to the boardroom speakers. This is the relevant section of the negotiation call. Time-stamped October 14th at 2:37 p.m. Kyle's voice came through clearly. "And your revenue projections for the next fiscal year?" My voice. "Based on our Q2 filing, we're projecting conservative growth of." Colin's voice cutting in. "We're looking at 42% growth minimum. Our client acquisition rate is accelerating faster than projected." Kyle's response. "That's significantly higher than the documentation we received." Colin's laugh. "We like to underpromise in writing. But between us, the real numbers are much stronger." I stopped the recording. The boardroom was completely silent. Colin's face had gone pale. "That audio is taken out of context. I was discussing aspirational targets, not." Miles slid a folder across the table. "These are the financial disclosures you filed 3 weeks before that call. Page 7 shows 28% projected growth. Page 11 shows client acquisition rates declining by 4% quarter over quarter." Another board member, Patricia Owens, spoke up. "Colin, you told us last week that the Horizon deal failed because Aubrey overwhelmed them with technical documentation. Is that accurate?" That was part of it, yes. We've reviewed her communications with Horizon. They were professional, detailed, and consistent with our filed information." Patricia pulled out her own folder. "We've also found 6 other instances where you forwarded selective email chains to investors and board members, omitting your own statements and making it appear that problems originated from your team." Colin started stammering, trying to redirect, but the evidence kept coming. Pierce opened another document. "We also have compliance logs showing you forwarded confidential financial models to external parties without legal review, then attempted to document Aubrey as responsible. The evidence mounted like stones on a grave. Every defense Colin attempted crumbled under documentation he hadn't known existed. The altered emails, the selective forwarding, the false statements to investors, the attempt to revoke my access the night before the meeting." Colin's face went from pale to flushed to pale again. He tried to blame stress. He tried to blame his team for not catching his mistakes. He even tried to suggest that I had deliberately sabotaged him. "Aubrey has been systematically undermining my authority for months. She's turned the board against me with doctored evidence and false accusations." "The evidence is time-stamped and verified," Pierce said quietly. "The call recording matches our phone system logs. The emails match our server archives. Nothing has been altered." Miles leaned forward. "Colin, Do you understand that you made material misrepresentations to a potential partner about our financial position? That's not a management issue. That's potentially fraud. The word hung in the air like a threat. I made a mistake. One mistake. Colin's voice cracked. I've built this company. I've worked 80-hour weeks. I've sacrificed everything. You've also destroyed 3 careers before this one, Patricia said softly. We pulled personnel records. Pierce Hammond, who we believed left voluntarily, was actually forced out after you blamed him for a client dispute you created. Same pattern. Same selective documentation. Colin looked around the table, searching for an ally. Found none. I'll resign, he said finally. Effective immediately. Just don't pursue legal action. The board members exchanged glances. We'll discuss terms with counsel, Pierce said. You're suspended pending investigation. Please leave your access badge and keys. Colin stood on shaking legs. As he passed my chair, he leaned close and whispered, You'll regret this. I looked him directly in the eye and said nothing. He left the boardroom with his shoulders hunched, a man who'd spent years building a house of cards and was just now realizing the wind had arrived. After Colin left, Pierce turned to me. Aubrey, on behalf of the board, I want to apologize. This should never have gotten this far. Your professionalism throughout this situation has been exemplary. Miles nodded. We'd like to offer you a retention bonus if you're willing to stay through the transition. $25,000. Plus we'll promote you to Colin's interim role while we search for a permanent replacement. It was more money than I'd ever been offered. It was vindication. It was everything I'd been fighting for. I appreciate the offer. Kept my voice steady. But I've accepted a position with Dominic Partners. I start in 2 weeks. Patricia smiled. Good for you. You deserve better than this. We'll provide whatever references you need, Pierce added. And if you ever want to return, the door is open. That afternoon, I walked out of the building for the last time as an employee. My desk was already packed. I'd prepared for any outcome. My phone buzzed with an email. From Colin. Aubrey, I know you're angry. I made mistakes. But I'm asking, please, I need a reference for my next position. Have a family. Please. I stared at the email for a long time. Then I wrote back. I cannot provide a misleading reference. I hit send and closed my laptop. 2 weeks later, I walked into Dominic Partners' Glass and Steel headquarters. Victoria Huang met me in the lobby with genuine warmth. Welcome officially. We've been preparing your office. I think you'll love the team. My office was bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. On my desk was a welcome packet and a handwritten note from the CEO praising my integrity and strategic vision. That evening, I received an email from the National Association of Business Ethics. They were hosting a leadership summit and wanted me to speak on a panel about ethical negotiation practices. Accepted. The next morning, I found an email from Kyle at Horizon Technologies. Aubrey, I heard you'd moved on. But I wanted you to know. Your documentation and professionalism during that whole situation was remarkable. If you're ever working with a company we should partner with, please reach out. I trust your work. I leaned back in my chair and looked out at the city. Colin had tried to destroy me to save himself. He'd calculated that I would be easier to sacrifice than admit his own mistakes. He'd been wrong. 6 months later, I stood in front of 200 business leaders at the Ethics Summit. The room was silent as I finished my presentation about accountability, documentation, and standing up for truth even when it cost something. The most important lesson I learned wasn't about revenge or vindication, I said. It was about understanding my own worth. When someone tries to make you the scapegoat for their failures, they're counting on you to stay silent. They're counting on you to prioritize peace over truth. Click to my final slide. It showed a simple quote I'd written. Justice doesn't need to be loud to be heard. Just needs to be true. I didn't win by becoming like the person who tried to destroy me. I won by staying exactly who I was. Competent, calm,